Well, Norman played in the NBA. That's
Yeah,
is
legit.
something we want to pluck from him. His experience having played
The
in that
Pistons.
gold mine of ours, or we're looking for that pot of gold. I mean, of ours. And well, Norman, could you tell us how it was back then? This was before you moved to the Philippines to play for Teflon, which
Yes.
was around 1980, I think, or 79. Could you tell us about how it was back then?
Yeah, actually, it was 1981.
Yeah.
And just to be derecho and solita, I just had a cup of coffee long. I wasn't there a very long time. I was only a year and a half out of college, and I arrived in the Philippines just before my 24th birthday. So I was still quite young when I arrived here in the
Oy,
Philippines.
naulaan
But
nyo na kung ilang taon si
I,
Norman ngayon kung marunong kayo ng math.
That's a, was that be the
I,
reason why you also carried the number 24 all the time?
no, not really. I was 24 when I was in college. That was my number, and that's
St.
the reason why I
Joseph's.
carried it when I got to the pros. My stint with the NBA was really made Delaware. My first year out of college, I made it through the entire exhibition season with the Washington. I think they were the
Bullets?
Bullets then.
Yeah, the
That's
Bullets,
how old
right.
I am.
Mhm.
Now they're the Wizards. And that means I played in 6 exhibition games. And most of those exhibition games were on the road. We played in Chicago Stadium. We played in the Boston Garden. We played in Madison Square Garden. So most of those games were on the road at that time. So that was actually my first experience with actual NBA games. And then I got cut just before the start of the season, maybe about 2 or 3 days before the start of the season. And that's how I ended up going to the CBA and playing there. The following year, I was with the Detroit Pistons because I got picked up out of the what we call this Continental Basketball Association, which is now the G League in the NBA. It's the minor leagues of the NBA. And I was picked up out of there in the middle of the season. So I had a 10-day contract with the Detroit Pistons. And I think I played in 4 or 5 games in those 10 days. And after the season was over, because this was towards the end of the season, they actually kept my rights during the summer. So I actually attended the summer league with the Detroit Pistons in Los Angeles, California, and that's actually where I met Jimmy Mariano, and he was the one who actually asked me would I be interested in coming and playing in the Philippines. But my stint in the NBA was, it was very short, but it was very memorable.
Was
People
that the
don't
time of the
realize
bad
that.
boys of the Pistons?
Not yet.
Was that
Well,
during
this
that
was
time?
just
No,
before
that was
Isaiah
earlier.
Thomas was recruited. He was drafted the year that I came to the Philippines was the year that Isaiah was drafted. And Kelly Trapuka, I believe, was the forward that was drafted out of Notre Dame. But just to answer your question about my stint in the NBA, there are things that I remember that will always stay in my mind. For instance, in Chicago, you now have the United Center.
Yes, that's right.
Right? That's the arena where they play.
Yeah.
Well, when I played there, it was the Chicago Stadium. And the locker rooms were underground. So you would walk out of the floor to get to the floor to play. You would go down into the floor to get to the locker rooms. It's very interesting because they don't have that in the NBA anymore, but back in those days they did. And then I also remember that when I was with the Bullets and we played the Boston Celtics in the Boston Garden. We stayed in the same hotel as the Atlanta Hawks, who were going to play Boston the next day. And I'll never forget this. I remember Connie Hawkins walking in with a mink coat on, with 2 girls on his arms. He walked in with 2 girls, one on the left, one on the right, a mink coat, a big mink hat, and he walked in because this was towards the end of September already, so it was getting kind of cool already. And he walked in, and I was like so fascinated,
Must have looked like a pimp.
Towards the end of his career at the time. And
was music playing at the time?
That stood out in my mind.
Was music playing then, Norman? Yeah, here, this is Tito. Yes.
Norman, you were not envious of Connie.
How
you wish.
Bata ako, so maybe.
Bata. But you could have wanted some Isaac Hayes playing there while you were
right.
marching in.
Stepped out of a Cadillac, probably, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But is it true, Norman? Is it true that the Boston fans are the dirtiest in the business? I mean, they'd spit at you and stuff, especially at the old Boston Garden.
I only played one game
Mhm.
in the Boston Garden, so I can't really tell you. Maybe Magic Johnson can give you a better idea because he played so many sports there. But yeah, the Boston fans have been known to be tough. Whether they're football fans, whether they're the Bruins fans from the hockey team, or whether they're
the Red Sox
baseball fans or the Red Sox, they do have a reputation for being pretty rough on the opponent.
And I hear
Norman?
they try to control the temperature at the Boston Garden, depending on who's playing.
Well, the rumor was that whenever you played in Boston, it was one or two things were going to happen. If you played in the wintertime, they were going to turn the temperature down, so it would be ice cold in your locker room. Okay, so
just in your locker
up to the floor. Yeah, but if you played in the springtime, then they would turn the temperature up, so it would be super hot. So those are the rumors that were going around. I can't confirm those. I didn't have a long career in the league, but those are the rumors that were going around.
Yeah, those are the the things you have to deal with if there are home and away games, so to speak, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Ito,
Pero may
nagsulat,
Si Lito kasi pareho
Medyo
kami
malupit.
ng high school.
Medyo malupit na tanong to, Lito. Malupit na tanong from me. Anong earliest NBA memory mo? Baka lumampas ka na nung 1946, ha?
Bata ako.
Si George Mikan yata ang ano niya, no?
Naririnig ko na si Hal Greer. That I remember.
Greer.
Black and white pa TV nun. Nakakapanood, nakakarinig ako sa kapitbahay namin. Wala kaming TV nun. I distinctly remember Hal Greer. Naririnig ko yung kanyang But,
Nung high school nga kami, sa Lourdes, Bob, no? Pag may free time, we'd go to the audiovisual center. Ang pinapalabas, Royals versus Celtics
Cincinnati,
championship. Yung championship, si ano pa nandun Oscar Robertson, nasa Royals, no? Tapos imagine, finals game. Doon pa lang ikakabit yung ring. Sinusukat talaga na dapat ganitong ang galing yung that was amazing yung yan. Sila Celtics yata nun, sila Bill Russell pa nun
Bob Cousy, Bill Russell.
Bob Cousy,
sila,
yes,
Casey
Sam
Jones.
Sam Jones. Oo.
Yun. So early memories talaga to Tsaka may film
Pero
yung dinadissect yung
some research sa NBA. Nag-start pala yung Basketball Association of America. 1946. 3 years bago naging NBA. They had 11 teams lang at that time. 46. And I was surprised, Washington, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit were already in the BAA. Tapos yung ibang teams actually nagbago-bago ng pangalan. But it remained to be based in one city. They were just changing names like Buffalo Braves that nag-develop into other names.
Sila yata yung Clippers na ngayon if I'm not
Yung
mistaken.
Buffalo Braves sa New York kasi yun Oo.
Hindi ko alam kung naisulat ko yan.
The Chicago Zephyrs. Mga ganun pangalan na Tri-Cities Blackhawks.
Si Almond, iniinggit tayo. Kala niya wala akong bola.
Oo Ito, medyo Teddy, tatanong ko si Almond ngayon. Anong earliest NBA memory niya? And don't tell me hindi mo naabutan si Michael Jordan.
Mukhang 17 years old lang to si Almond
Bagets na bagets. Bagets.
Hindi pa.
Sasabihin mo, hindi mo naabutan si Jordan.
Naabutan ko na sila. Kobe Bryant na ako mga ganyan.
Kobe Bryant. Okay,
You know this big guy named Bill O'Neal, kilala mo yun?
Kay Norman. we're talking about the NBA kasi. So, yung bang basic difference
Nawala
between,
ulit.
ba't pag tinatanong to, nawawala?
Oo, nawawala.
Oo nga eh.
Parang exam.
Oo
Nahihiya.
nga eh. Naghahanap ng
Hindi
kodigo.
naman natin siya tinatanong tungkol sa Victoria Court. Ano?
As a friend. Ayun, ano.
Kasi maganda pag-usapan niya naging
Ayun na.
development ng NBA style of play eh. From the time.
Ayan, oh.
Norm, can you try and help us by explaining to us, in your own point of view, how did the NBA develop into what it is now? What is the basic or what are the basic difference between now and before? I would know one already. The physical game was kaya nga may bad boys dun eh.
Kaya
During the time that
there
you
was no
played,
LeBron.
can you compare the time that you were playing to the time it is now, as far as the way of playing is concerned?
Well, you know, I have the experience. I'll say experience. So hindi masama. Experience lang of watching Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, Jerry West, a lot of the really older players who were the first superstars in the NBA. And then I was able to watch the middle of the pack guys who I feel really turned the league around. And that was the Julius Irvings, the Magic Johnsons, the Larry Birds. And in a way, eventually Michael Jordan, in a way, they actually saved the league because the league was mirrored in a lot of controversies for a while with drugs and did not really have a lot of stability as far as the teams were concerned. The ABA was making a transition from their league to the NBA. And then you have today with the LeBron James era, is what I would call it. And of course, Kobe Bryant would be part of that LeBron James era because it's up to.
Oops, wala ulit si Norman.
Yeah, sorry. It's third world internet, so we'll.
Almond.
Natin ulit si Almond. Sige,
Almond. Kailan mo kami bibigyan bola? Dinerecho na.
Bumili ka.
Si Teddy implied but not stated eh, no? Ikaw stated not implied. Okay, let's go back to Norm.
Yeah, guys.
Norm, yung way of playing itself.
Internet. Yeah, I would say
the way the game was being played before and now.
Well, I thought before the game was much more physical. It was much more orientated towards the defense. And physicality was almost encouraged.
You know, Norman, somebody has to give a tribute to you for that, your resilience. Because I think everybody threw everything at you, including the kitchen sink, and yet you remain the asset, cool. The gentleman,
not always,
the
not
kind of player that didn't look like it. It looked so well.
Norm, share with them the only time that you got mad and you did something.
Ang kwento? Isang beses lang, galit talaga ako. I think it was San Miguel versus Kalaban ng Tanway. And ang Kalaban ko, individual Kalaban, si Padima Israel. Remember Padima Israel?
Huh?
Yeah.
Magaling defender. Magaling defensive player. He was one of the toughest guys in the league for me to go up against. And so, syempre, no blood, no foul. Physical talagang laro, diba? Physical talaga. And I get the ball on the baseline. I up fake Padim. He goes for the up fake. And we had this thing that when a guy went up for an up fake, as he's coming down, you go up.
Yeah.
So you automatically get the foul. The problem is my elbow hits Padim sa muka and bloodies his lip. So now he's bloody. You know, everybody's looking at me like, oh, masama, you know. You hit him wrong. So he has to go out of the game because his lip is really bleeding. And in comes Victor Rambo Sanchez.
Sanchez.
You guys remember
Big Sanchez.
The enforcer.
The game, And on the very first play, we're on the foul line together. And Sama see Victor, right to my left. He's on my left. We're on the foul line together. The foul shot is shot. Meitira na. And instead of going for the ball, Victor just elbows me. Sasiko sa mukako.
No.
Cheap
And
shot.
I swear, I thought my face was broke. Sira muka. And I just got so mad. So I started chasing him down the court. I'm cursing at him. I'm chasing him. The referees are running at us, trying to separate us. But we don't hit each other. So the what does
No
Victor
blood,
do?
no foul.
Yeah, that's right. Victor comes and sets a screen on me, of all things to do. He comes and sets a screen on me, and I just tried to run right through him. I tried to,
Knock
to
him
knock
off.
his head off.
Sagasa.
So the referees ended up calling a technical on me for doing that, and that was just a bad play for me. I couldn't understand why Victor would get involved in something that was going on between Vadim and I. But
Because he is Vic Sanchez.
there were a lot of Victor Rambo Sanchez's in the PBA when I
True.
arrived in the Philippines. Anchi De La Cruz. And
Anchi,
remember,
yeah, right.
all of
Rudy
the rugged
Distrito.
players, hindi lahat ng rugged players sa PBA ang malaki.
Mm-hmm.
Some were small. I mean, they were. I mean,
Yes.
not really small, but they weren't really big guys. Like Sonny Jaworski's about 6'1",
Mm-hmm.
but he's the most physical guy in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's
I
right.
mean, if you go anywhere near Sonny Jaworski, you should have your elbows up, ready to hit him. Because if you don't hit him, he's definitely
He's gonna hit you.
He's gonna hit you as he runs by. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the way the NBA was in those days.
Norm,
NBA
would
was
you
insane.
agree, ang isang observation ngayon, the current NBA players are soft compared dun
Oh
sa
no.
sa 80s or 90s. Okay, I mean, what's your take on that?
I don't agree with that.
Mm,
I think players play in the era that they play in.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
The rules dictate how they play.
Yes.
Remember, back in the old days with the Pistons and the Bad Boys and the Knicks, and
Mm-hmm.
you could play that way because you might get like $100 fine.
Yeah.
$200 fine.
Now you get a
Now they're handing
$15,000
out,
fine.
$50,000 fines. You know, nobody wants to have to pay the commissioner $50,000 because they hit
That's
somebody.
right.
So of
Uh-huh.
course you're going to control your emotions. You're going to control your physicality because you're not trying to give money away. You be going para. You're not giving it away to people. So I think the players today, because they are big, Malakas and Katawan, diba? They can be just as physical as the guys were before if the league would allow them to do so.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah,
I mean,
before
look at some of those,
clotheslining was the norm.
You look at some of those New York Knicks, Detroit Pistons battles
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
that was pretty
Yeah.
tough.
Okay, Norman, you said before NBA players will just be fined $100, $200, they can easily afford. But if you look at the salaries of the players before, I did some research. Bill Russell was only about $100,000 a year. Will Chamberlain was $250,000 a year. Umakyat yan yung time nila Magic Johnson. Larry Bird is making about $7 million at the highest per year. Compared mo ngayon kay Stephen Curry, who's the
Si Steph
highest
Curry,
paid
grabe ngayon.
salary,
Oo.
about almost $46 million in 1 year.
Mhm.
Although it is LeBron James who gets the highest pay if you include salaries plus endorsements at about $111 million a year, which means they can also afford to pay 15,000, 20,000, 25,000 fines.
My
So-
God, that's my life savings already. $15,000.
Many times over our lives, man.
Lito,
Oo,
before
eh.
Norman answers, may we know, Norman, if you don't mind, how much were you paid during your Detroit?
Oh, he
stint?
minds. He minds.
He minds. He would mind.
He minds.
Just to compare to what Lito.
You mean for 10 days, Teddy? How was it?
Yeah, 10-day contract. Was that a per game or
No,
per day?
When I was in the NBA, the minimum salary was $45,000 a year.
Okay.
A year.
So you can imagine what
Mhm.
Vito's saying about the salaries of Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. But everything it relates, right? I mean, if you're only getting paid $200,000, you don't want to give somebody $100, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing. If Curry is getting paid, what is he getting paid? 100 million or more, 200 million? Then a lot of times when you get penalized in the NBA, it's not just what they fine you. A lot of times they will suspend you, and that
That's true.
suspension
That's
is
right.
without pay.
Mhm.
So every day that you miss, you're actually paying it back to the NBA.
That's right.
So everything relates, right? I mean, as far as the
That's true.
salaries are concerned. In other words, I do not want to be giving Willie Marshall my money. I don't like the idea that I'm actually handing my money to Willie Marshall.
Norm Willie Marshall was stats at that time.
Yeah,
He
we
was a
were together.
statistician that
Second
time.
We were together in
He
vintage.
was in the stats at that time.
By the way, Ed
Pero
Barbosa
ganun
was
yun, George.
asking.
Ganun yun, George. Yung the league has to earn money first. Diba? So
Yeah.
the teams have to make money for them to pay, to be able to pay you. Yun
Yeah.
lang naman.
How big
Yes.
are the fans? How big are the fans in terms of the factors in winning basketball games?
I'll speak as a player, former player.
Yes.
Having the fans in the gym, that's huge. I mean, that's your motivation.
Yeah.
Players play the game of basketball because they want people to know that they're good. They want people to appreciate their talents. And in a way, players want to go out and show off a little bit. They want to go off and show off their talents. They want people to be impressed with their talents. So having the fans in the gym is big time. I mean, I'm hoping we'll get the fans back in the PBA this conference, but it just helps to motivate you. Of course, the Philippines is a little bit different in the fact that, Ginebra has the most fans. So it's normally a Ginebra game where the most fans show up. But all of the teams have a fan base. They have people that go there every game just to support that particular team. So for the players, it's big to have the fans coming back into the arena. So I hope it happens in this conference.
Yeah, me too.
Pero Ted, alam mo, fan base before and after, yung noon, nung kalakasan ng PBA, you would have fans club for each team. Then you had individual fans club for players.
Yes.
Jojo Lastimosa fans club, Vin Season fans club. Yun yung nawala din sa current ngayon.
And the George Boone
That's one
All-Timers
factor that has affected the PBA, I think. Norman, inabot mo yung time na yun, di ba? That each team had its own big fans club, and then the players will have their own fans club. You remember those times, Norman?
When I coached San Miguel, we had our own fans club.
Yeah.
And it was
the players had their own.
And
Yeah,
we
San
would have
Miguel was
about
huge
20
that
to
time.
25 fans come to every practice. They would be in practice. I mean, Ginebra had a huge fan club because of Sonny Jaworski. Albert Patrimonio had his own fans club.
Yeah.
Yep.
Along with his team, Jojo Lastimosa.
Yep.
Johnny Abrientos. Alaska had a fans club. That's something that we're missing a little bit now.
Yes.
That we need to try to get back. That's normally started by just a few fans, huh? And then they recruit other fans, and before you know it, it grows.
Norman, we were talking about how good it is a year for the Philippines in the NBA right now because we have technically two Filipino-blooded players active there. And then there's Jimmy, who's working in the Kings as an assistant coach.
Yeah, I'm so happy for Jimmy. If I could just start with that. I worked with Jimmy with Talking Text. I worked with him with Moralco. He was my assistant coach. I think he's just a great guy. As I've always told him, as long as I have a head coaching job, he'll have an assistant coaching job because that's how much respect I have for him. I'm hoping and praying that his team does well in the G League and he's able to continue to move up the ladder and hopefully one day get to the men's team, to the NBA team. So I'm really happy for him, and I'm hoping for the best for him. Yeah, the Filipinos have done well. I mean, if we have the sixth man in the league, and we have the number 2 pick in the draft. And the most important thing for me is that, más importante, they recognize their Filipino roots.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
that's right.
recognize them. They celebrate them. They're boisterous with it. You know, where they came from, where their parents came from. So, yeah, it's something to be proud of. It's something to keep track of as the season goes on.
We're at a point in the NBA where, Norman, you mentioned a lot of players already, the players' names, and it goes way beyond a handful. Whereas back in the, say, 80s, there would be a handful of dominant players. Um, and back in the early days of the NBA, there was George Mikan and probably nobody else, and a few others who came along. Would you say that this kind of progress that the NBA has would stretch into the future, where you can't really select a good MVP because of the tough competition from everybody?
Well, I think you have a larger variety of good players in the NBA, mainly because of the European players, the foreign players, the African players. It's not, the players aren't just coming from the United States anymore. They're coming from all over the world. And that gives you an influx. It's almost like having a shot of players coming from all over that help strengthen the league as far as talent is concerned. So I think that's why, maybe compared to the 60s or the 70s, where mostly all of the players were Americans, now you have all these other players, all this other talent coming in from around the world. That's really helped the NBA become more global.
Yeah.
I always look at it this way. No matter whether it's the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the players had their time. I always think, and I still think, that Wilt Chamberlain can dominate today. And I say that because I grew up in Overbrook, Philadelphia. My school, St. Joe's, is situated in Overbrook, Philadelphia, which is where Wilt Chamberlain came from, which is where he went to high school. And I remember how dominant he was at that time. And I remember all the stories that were being told about his dominance at that time. So I don't see how he would not be dominant today. If you understand what I'm saying. In other words, I think sometimes people forget that Julius Erving would be just as good today as he was then.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tendency, as time goes on, we focus in on the players today as being the greatest players of all time, and you forget about the guys who came before them, who paved the way for them.
Yeah.
And I do understand that guys are bigger, stronger. I wish I could have had a personal trainer when I was coming up, like these guys have today. And they hire these personal trainers, and these guys work them out. They have their strength trainer, they have their skills trainer, they have the nutritionist. I mean, we didn't have any of that when I was coming up. But guys who came up before me and during my time, if they were in today's world, they would have all those advantages. Mm-hmm. So I love the way the game's being played today. I wish it would be a little bit more physical. I wish it wasn't, I think one of you said soft earlier. I wouldn't call the league soft by any means of the imagination, but I wish they would allow a little bit more physicality. But at the same time, I think the players today are super athletic. And I'll give you an example. If you guys ever watch the NBA highlights that come on NBA TV, they always have to go back in time and show something. They showed this highlight of Dominique Wilkins going baseline. And he goes up and he double pumps and he dunks the basketball on somebody. I'm not sure who the helpless guy was who got dunked on. But he dunks on somebody, and then the commentator goes, "That's the best dunk I've ever seen in my life. That's the best dunk ever in the NBA." And I look at that, and I look at the dunk, and I'm saying, What would that dunk be today? That would be nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a double pump dunk. He dunked on that's it.
Yeah.
These guys are flying through the air, bringing it back, behind their shoulders.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which brings us to the question, Norman. Who is the GOAT? Which brings us to the question, who is the GOAT?
The best of all time?
Yes, greatest of all time.
I think what ends up happening is it depends on what era you grew up in. For me, it's Michael Jordan. That's an easy one. I won't even, if you want to debate me, we can debate it, but, But remember, I didn't grow up during Wilt Chamberlain's era. Anybody who grew up during Wilt Chamberlain's era might say Wilt Chamberlain. He was the most dominant player at that time.
Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Some people might say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because he leads the NBA in scoring. If you grew up during Kobe Bryant's time, you say Kobe Bryant. And of course, today people would say LeBron James.
No, LeBron said so. That's the difference.
So Lito, what's your answer? So it's not
Michael
LeBron.
Jordan.
Okay.
Michael Jordan. You go beyond points. You go beyond skill. I look at it as the overall. Tangible and intangible. Iba yung Michael Jordan. The passion is really up there, and I think the closest to him lang would be Kobe Bryant and Larry Bird. I like Larry Bird. The best accolade for a white player, somebody said, he can go and play in any black neighborhood area and he will be welcome. That's a very big compliment.
He would be,
yeah. Right?
Bob, you have an answer, Bob?
Alam ko ikaw, Lou Salvador Sr. yan.
Baka hindi kilala ni Norman yun, Hindi, sagutin ko, Bob, bago ikaw. Sige.
Okay, ikaw muna.
Yeah, maybe Michael Jordan is the best player. But the best personality the NBA has produced is LeBron James. Because outside of the playing court, he stands up for something. In national issues,
so did Bill Russell. Ganun din naman siya nun .
Yeah, but then ito talaga very outspoken si LeBron, and he has so many charitable projects in his hometown and other places. So I think yun ang biggest difference.
Kaya nga nagkakaiba-iba tayo. We came from different points of view.
Yes,
diba? Yung greatness, you define it this way, I will define it this way. Right? And there will always be disagreements between basketball fans when it comes to picking who's better than who. Tama nga si Norma they're the best in their generation. Why compare two players from two different generations when the situation was very much different?
But then, Lito, gusto ng NBA
always
yun
compare.
The NBA likes that.
Yeah, people
always
talk
about. Yeah, talking about who's the greatest.
Yeah.
That's publicity without them doing anything. Bob, what's your answer?
Maraming panukat . There are several measures to find out who is a game changer. So now I would go literally to who was influential enough to change the game. If you were living in Kareem's era, even in college they outlawed the dunk because of Kareem. And he learned before Kareem, and then he learned how to do that skyhook and then make a football pass over to the other side, which is not easy. Was not easy at the time.
Football pass, hindi baseball pass.
He called it the football pass, not the baseball pass. Si Kareem nagsabi nun sa UST gym. Sinabi niya yun. Diba? Alam ko pa. I would say argument, yes, there's an argument for Michael Jordan, but he was the best at what he was doing. But for me, he did not change the game. He was playing the best at that game. It was Julius Erving who changed the game for me. So there. There's arguments always, all the time.
But di ba si Julius Erving, yung known siya being a high flyer?
Yes.
Well,
He brought the streets to the NBA.
I honestly believe that you said the GOAT. I believe Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
Yeah.
There's no question about that in my life. But I do agree with you that, because for me, the most influential player of my life was Julius Erving, because I grew up in Philadelphia. I went to college there.
Wow.
At the same time that Julius Erving was playing for the 76ers. They practiced in our gym, so I was able to watch him practice with the Sixers and watch the way he moved. But more importantly, I watched the way he changed the entire NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while, the 76ers were like a walking rock band. When they had George McGinnis and Daryl Dawkins and Lloyd Freed, they were like a walking rock band. Everywhere they went, all their games were sold out. People were meeting them at the airport. Everybody wanted to see Dr. J. That's all they talked about. And I remember this because at this time, the NBA was struggling. They were struggling with drug problems. They were struggling with attendance. And when Dr. J came over from the ABA, he changed everything. And then it led to, and I'll take the next step, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Magic, yeah.
And that's when the NBA started playing games overseas. They started playing the McDonald games over in Europe. And that's when the game started spreading around the world. It became more of a universal game than just an American game. So I would agree with you that Julius Erving was very influential, and then Larry Bird and Magic Johnson actually carried the torch. But as far as performance that I saw, particularly in championship series, I have to go with Jordan. I would have to
Jordan.
6-0. 6-0 in the finals.
And I witnessed all of that. That was during my time. So
yes.
Aren't we lucky to have witnessed all that? Aren't we all lucky to have seen that? Nakita natin
the very best of the best.
Yes, but a lot of the young kids today did not see that. The ones that love LeBron James, they didn't see that.
So
I failed to watch the Jordan games. Normal.
So Ted, ang score, tayong apat, dalawa for Michael Jordan, one for LeBron, one for Julius Erving. Norman, we won.
But no prize.
So they get the prize from
MJ. You ask MJ for your premium. But I have one observation. Naiingit ako, I envy the NBA players who are very vocal about national issues, not just politics. Here in the Philippines,
you can't.
I'm sorry. But why not?
There's a product attached to you, Ted.
Yes, you're under contract. The same thing with the stars, with the movie stars, with the television stars. They have contracts.
But it's a good thing too.
They can say their piece. They can say their piece. The only time that the PBA players stood up for something was the one you mentioned when they were against the field shams. They even went to the Department of Justice. I saw them there. But nothing more. Nothing.
Okay, siguro this might shed a little light. You guys know Danny Spiritu.
Yes.
Right? The player agent, he has about 75 to 80 players. His son has about 24. They control maybe 80-90% of the current player. I asked Danny in one interview, just a few years ago, what's the difference between the players of our time, meaning 80s, 90s, and with the current generation as far as being a player agent is concerned? Sabi niya, dito alam mo ang players ngayon, ang number one priority is get me the biggest salary that you can get for me. Which sabi niya, that's a big difference. Unlike before, there was this desire really to play, the passion to play. Ngayon parang talagang hanap buhay siya. I'll go with the highest bidder. So there was a note of disappointment also on the part of Danny because he has been around. He has seen all these players na from here to here, from here to... Halata mong medyo disappointed din siya. And I think it's true. I don't know, Norman, if you share the same observation and difference between the players now and the players before.
PBA, you're talking about PBA players, Lito.
PBA.
Yes.
And we're not talking about skills. Kasi nag-umpisa tayo dito, sabi niya na NBA players are more active, taking part on national issues.
Taking a stand.
Ito nga, hindi natin maramdaman yan eh. So, what do you think, Norman? Yung current difference between current and past PBA players natin, attitude-wise?
Well, if I analyze the Morocco team, I will say that they still possess really good work habits. In other words, they get there early, they get their work in and practice. They're not lazy. They're masipag. The way they work, they're there to improve their skills and get better. And that's something that I don't think the older players, the players that I grew up with when I was playing, always got a lot of credit for. People don't realize that Amon Fernandez was probably one of my hardest workers in practice.
Mm-hmm.
He did not have all those different type of shots, the Kili shot and the elegant shot and all those names that he used to go with his shots during those days. That didn't just happen. He worked on those shots every single day in practice. He had good work habits in practice.
Yeah.
Now, what he did off the court, you have to talk to him about that. But on the court, he came to work every day.
Yeah.
Every single day. I think in that sense, and maybe it has something to do with the coach, but in that sense, because some coaches can demand, hey, guys, we got to work hard if you want to improve, if you want to win games. But today's players, I think, it's more of a partnership than it used to be when it comes to the coaching and the playing. In other words, the players want to be more involved. They want to know why you're doing certain things. They also want to have a little bit of a say in what you're doing. Unlike in the past, it was more, I won't say it was military-like, where I'm the head general and you're under me and you just have to do whatever I say. Now you have to explain it. You have to explain what you're going to do. It's more of a partnership with your players than it was before, where you just totally dominated everything and just do it. Run through that wall for me. Don't ask me any questions. Just run through the wall. Now you might have to explain why they're running through the wall before they run through. So it's become a little bit different in that sense. But I don't really see that much of a difference, to be quite honest with you, in the attitudes of the players. I mean, I won't go into, the private life and political side of things because I don't really deal with that very much. But I mean, as far as them coming to work every day and getting their work done, in a lot of ways, they're even more dedicated than the players before, because there's so much more available to them. They have personal trainers. They have a strength trainer. They have a nutritionist. We never did any of that before.
Yep.
Maybe if we did, we would have been much better players.
Last question.
Those things just didn't exist then like they do today. So I think the players today are I think they're cooperative. I think they work hard. I think, yes, you may be right. Maybe they want the most money they can earn while they can.
Napakaswerte, ang daming pwedeng pag-usapan at saka ang daming may alam dun sa pag-uusapan natin from these two gentlemen na bisita natin ngayon. Thank you very much, Manong Lito Cinco. Thank you very much. And of course, Coach Norman Black, it is a pleasure to see you again. And please show up every now and then pagka, wherever we get to bump into each other. See you again. Kasama ko rin siya sa panel dati.
Good to see you, Norm.
Been a while.
Long time.
Kailan nga birthday mo? Pupunta kami ni na Norman.
March 20 tsaka March 21.
Okay.
Dalawang
Sabi
araw.
ng nanay ko, March 20. Sabi nung birth
Tatay mo.
certificate ko, March 21.
2 days.
So I celebrate twice a year.
Overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, thanks a lot. It was fun to do this kind of thing.
Thank you. I hope to see you again, Sir Lito.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Ayun.
invite, guys. Thank you.
And thank you, Norman. Thank you.
Maraming salamat.
More power.
Salamat.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of George Boone. We'll see you again next week for another episode of Boomer's Banquet.